Animation, baby.
Hi, my name's Mike Scott. I'm going to be giving you a very basic tutorial on integration between Photoshop and Animate Studio. I'm using Animate Studio Pro, and it doesn't really matter what version of Photoshop you're using. I'm using CS6. You may know some of my work from the Goldfish music videos where I use Photoshop and Animate Studio with the little animated goldfish. In this tutorial we're going to be doing a really simple character that walks up to a puddle, jumps over it and says a few words. But the principles can be used for much more complicated work and scenes. But just to give you a general overview, we're going to have a look at that, and I'm kind of using this tutorial as a test bed to see if people like it, or if they want more stuff, or what stuff people are looking for. And then I may do further tutorials and other stuff with Animate Studio. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do before we do any animation is plan it out. What I'm thinking is just a simple character who walks up to a puddle, jumps over the puddle and then says a few words. So we're just going to do a simple plan. That's our character. We don't have to plan him out properly now. We could do arms and stuff, but I think just to keep things simple now, we're just going to keep him as a body with legs. There's going to be a puddle over here. He's going to walk up to it, stop, bend his legs down, jump over, stop, and then say a few words to the camera. And he can say something like, "I'm a ninja because I jumped over the puddle." So we're going to show you, or I'm going to show you, how to draw the character in Photoshop, how to set it up for Animate Studio, how to animate it in Animate Studio, how to record a sound bite, how to import that into Animate Studio, and then how to export it all into a movie file. So that's our plan. Let's get to it. So we've done our drawing now. Our planning, and now it's time to draw the stuff. We could draw it in Animate Studio, but the vector tools are a whole different story. So I'm going to draw it in Photoshop. I'm going to make a new document. Let me just do that again. File, new. Alright, and we can go to our presets. I'm going to choose 1280 by 720 pixels document, and 72 dpi or pixels per inch is fine for TV or web, and we'll go OK. So now we got our Photoshop document open here. I'm going to create a new layer and then get the brush tool by selecting it here. If you've got the pencil tool or something else selected, select the brush tool, and you could just go ahead and draw straight. I'm using a Wacom Intuos 4 tablet, and the various settings up here affect how the tablet draws, but just to keep things simple, I'm not going to go into too much depth. We're going to get, I've got a couple of brush presets here, and I like using a rough blue pencil to start off with. So I'm just going to rough out the shapes quickly of my character, and you could scan this in, you could draw it on paper first and scan it in. Let's give this guy something like that. Let's give him some legs like that. And we're just going to give him some arms sticking out. Alright. So this is the rough idea what we're going to draw. Once I've done that, before that I just want to draw a puddle. Because from the drawings we decided that he's going to jump over a puddle and say something. So these are the only two things I'm going to keep. I'm going to create a new layer here. So you see this is on a separate layer now. On this layer, I'm going to get a brush preset and I'm going to choose a black outline color. That's pretty big and I've got my caps lock on so I can't see the brush. So I'm going to make it about 20. And the important thing here is to draw the different parts separately. So I'm going to do the body and the arms on one layer. These arms aren't going to move. They're just for show. Create a new layer. Excuse me. Draw the eyes on a separate layer. Whoops. I'm going to draw the mouths on a separate layer. I'm going to draw the legs on their own layers. And I'm going to draw this puddle on a separate layer. Okay. Now I'm going to select these layers by holding Shift and clicking on the last one and press Command G. I'm on a Mac, so I think it's probably Control G on a PC. So here's my character I've got. I'm going to deselect that rough layer. And now I'm going to put the eyes in its own group. And I'm just going to turn the opacity down for the eyes here. Because I also want another set of eyes. I'm going to create a new layer. And I want some eyes looking forward. I could have also just put the pupils on separate layers, but that's fine. And then I'm going to increase the opacity again of that. And let's name these eyes. And this group is called character. Select the mouth, press Command G. Now it's in its own layer, and we're going to call this mouths. So this is an open mouth shape, and when he's going to talk, he's going to use different mouth shapes. So let's give him a closed mouth. Let's give him a TH mouth. Let's give him a U. And I jumped like an because I'm awesome. That should be fine. We won't do too many mouths. So that's closed. TH. Oh. We could also do an FV mouth, which I'll just do anyway, which is where his teeth kind of are saying the F sound. And there's a whole number of different mouths shapes we could do, but let's leave it at that for now. And here's his leg. Let's call them leg 1 and leg 2. Let me just put an underscore here. And here's the body. Okay, now we can, and let's put this puddle in its own separate group. When we import the Photoshop file to Animate Studio, you can see why this is important. I'm just going to color this guy really quickly. I've selected my paint bucket tool. I've kept these options at the top on. Use a nice red color. The eyes, we can't see it now, but I'll just show you. I'm going to press Command U on the background layer so we can see when we color them white. I'm using keyboard shortcuts to select different stuff, but to change the color, we'd go here and we could select an off-white color for the eyes, but I'm going to choose plain white. And I'm going to color these eyes white as well. For the the various mouths. What's a good idea when you're coloring stuff like this to not eat into the line is you select behind with the paint bucket tool. That way it doesn't chew up the black line with anti-aliasing. I'm going to choose a darker red for the inside here. I'm going to choose white. That's not white. I'm going to choose white for the teeth and white for FE. Okay. The leg is also going to be red. Both these legs are going to be red. So that's the character. The puddle I'm going to color blue. So I'm going to select the blue color or choose it from here. But I'll select that blue. And I'm going to go to brush and I'm going to go click on behind so I can paint it from behind. And we'll give it some white highlights. Whoops. We go back to normal. Cool. So we've got our puddle, we've got our character, and let's make the various things visible. Now, this is quite an important step. I'm just going to save the file now. Let's call it dude. The important step is when you've got a group here with that where it has layers that you want to be able to switch around. So in other words, I only want one pair of eyes showing at a time. I don't want both pairs showing. Then you just leave this last layer in the group selected. That way when we import it to Animate Studio, it's going to turn this group into a switch group automatically. And that's useful. So these mouths are also going to be in a switch group. I want to switch between them. All these layers are going to be invisible or hidden, and this layer, this very bottom one, is going to be visible. And let's select the legs. We want to move the legs behind the body. And we're going to delete that layer and delete the background layer and save the file. Cool. Our Photoshop file is now ready. I'm just going to move them into the middle. Is now ready to be moved or imported into Animate Studio to be animated. It's nice and clean. And away we go. Okay, that's done. So let's open Animate Studio. And before we do anything, it's not a bad idea to make the project settings the same as our document in Photoshop, which was 720p 1280 by 720. This is a standard HD size. We could go higher to 1080p, but for now we'll just keep it like that. If you're in America, in the Americas, your frame rate for TV is usually 24. But for PAL in South Africa it's 25, so I'm going to keep it at 25. So let's go OK. So we're going to import the file now. We go File, Import, Image. And I had it saved under Dude. And we're going to import it individually. So we've got our character here. You can see it's named things as we named them in Photoshop. The mouths are now in a switch layer, which means it only displays one layer at a time. So are the eyes. We got our puddle here. So it's all looking pretty good. What we're going to do now is start rigging the character and start adding group folders to it to help move it around. Now in the drawings we had the character walking in from the screen left, stopping, jumping over the puddle, and then saying a few words. So one of the first things we're going to do is convert this leg to a bone layer. We're going to do the same with that bone, that same group folder. So I'm just going to hide the body for now. I can't do that. I'm going to hide that body layer. And I'm going to hide the puddle. I'm just going to switch my Wacom tablet on. Make things a bit easier. And just to isolate things, I'm only showing this one leg. And as you can see, it's in its own bone layer. We haven't added any bones yet. We're going to do that now. Now, Animate Studio, one of its strengths is using bones to move 2D layers around. So we select the bone layer first and click on this button that's adding to add a new bone. We're going to add 2 bones now. We could add more, but just to demonstrate, we're going to add 2 bones. So we click and drag and let go, and click and drag and let go. Now my second bone wasn't very, it doesn't really come off there neatly, so I'm going to go to this move tool and just move that into place and move the end there. Immediately, if we click on this button, we can kind of bend things around. We can see it's not quite working properly yet. So I click on the bone strength tool. Keep in mind that you really should be at frame 0 when you're doing this. And I'm going to click and drag left on these bones until they're covering the leg. That's looking a bit better. If it's this type of bone gives a particularly bendy look. If we want a different look, we can double click on the leg bone, click on bones, and click on region binding. Okay, that's going to give us a different kind of look like that, which is quite cool. So we're just going to increase the bone strength here. And I'm going to try to get the bone strength for both of these about the same. So we'll just test it, and that's good enough for me. Right, let's hide that, and let's do the same for the other leg. Click and drag about to the knee, and click and drag. Just neaten that up a bit. We could add another bone to the foot to move the foot independently, but it's going to be alright for now. Double click the leg bone, and turn it to region binding. Let's again do the bone strengths. Right. Okay. That should be fine. Now, we've got that sorted out. We've got the eyes and the mouths. If you right click one of these switch layers, you see the mouth shapes, and we're going to choose closed, and we're going to start the eyes off with his eyes looking to the right and his mouth closed. And we're going to put the puddle there. Okay, so we're looking pretty good so far. I'm going to save this and call it that. So the next thing we're going to do is add a group layer to have him walking horizontally. Now, not many people use this way of setting up characters. I found it to be the best way to help keep things manageable. So I'm going to call it move H. Move H for horizontal. Now we are going to animate a walk. Alright. So I've just pressed right here. I'm going to move it to frame 1. And we're going to put these legs on independent cycles. You could have put both legs in the same bone layer, but I found this is a really easy way to separate things and not get too many keyframes. Have keyframes on their own layers and just make things a lot easier to manage. So to animate the walk cycle, I really recommend checking out Richard Williams' book, The Animator Survival Kit. It has a whole bunch of walk cycles you can try out. It explains the dynamics of a walk cycle. So I'm going to do a stock walk cycle for now. These key poses are stuff you'll probably learn as you animate more. This is just a really simple walk cycle. This is the contact position, and I just press right to get to the next frame. This is going to be the passing position, next frame. This is the next contact position, and this next frame is going to be the next passing position. So I can use the left and right buttons on the keyboard to cycle through these. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to separate them and cycle them. So I'm going to go right once, select this first keyframe, and copy and paste it. If you're using old versions of Anime Studio, it's Alt-C, Alt-V. More recent versions, you can use Command-C and Command-V if you're on a Mac, and I suppose Windows is Control-C and Control-V. We're going to select these keyframes we've created. Then you hold Alt and click and drag them out. And this is going to space it out easier for you instead of doing it one by one. It looks like we've got about 4 frames between each keyframe now, so that should be fine. And then right click this last keyframe, which is actually the first keyframe copied, if you remember. See that? Right click it and go cycle. And let's go relative back. I think it's about 15. Yeah, that's right. We could have cycled it back exactly to frame 2. We don't want to cycle it back exactly to the first keyframe like that, because otherwise when it loops we're going to get double of that same one. We want to cycle it just after that first one. It takes a while to get your head around this if you're new to it, but it does kind of make sense. If I'm going to keyboard right here on the keys, you can see what's happening here. So it gets to this, it gets from the last pose back to the first one and then cycles again. So that's the one leg we got walking there. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to do the same story with this leg, but the opposite direction. So there's the contact position. It's going to do the passing position. Next frame is the next contact position, and then its passing position. I press enter to deselect, and then I'm going to copy the first keyframe after the last one. I'm going to select those ones, don't select frame 0. Hold Alt and drag them out. Good. Right click, cycle, and it's going to go 15 frames back and cycle. So there we've got a walk. I can already see a problem here where that back leg is coming in front of that, so I'm just going to drag that below. That's better. Good. Right, now we're going to actually move him across the screen. And the way we do that is with this H group. Just to show it clearly, what I'm going to do now is make another group and call it move V for move vertical. And I like separating my vertical movement from my horizontal movement. You get much nicer interpolation between things, I find. You can do nice curves. Let me show you now. So I'm dragging the character into the vertical move group. As you can see, the horizontal one is the parent of the vertical one, and the vertical one is the parent of the whole character. I find this system works well. And we're going to select the vertical movement group and put the origin around by where his feet is. Okay. So I go to the first, and importantly, let's do this. Let's select this default vector keyframe and just add a line. Let's add a line to use as our ground line. So I press and I click and drag, and I'm holding shift to create a straight line. And let's just make that 2 vector points align. Now press tab. You see I've selected both points now. I'm going to press U on the keyboard, and that's given me the shape tool, and press spacebar to make a shape. So this is a whole different tutorial, I think, about vector drawing, but I'm just going to make this stroke gray. And we're going to call that ground. Just double click the layer and rename it. So just double click it again, and we're going to click on don't render this layer. This is just a guide for us to keep his feet on some kind of ground level. Alright? And when we render the movie, we don't want that layer to show. So apply. Okay, so when this character is moving, you can see there's not a huge lot of vertical movement. I mean, when his feet are kind of off the ground here, and his feet are on the ground there, and we wanna make it so his feet are always on the ground. And it also, up and down movement when a character is walking helps a lot. So on frame 1, I've moved him down, and then we're gonna click forward 4 frames, which is the next position, and he's going to go up. I'm holding shift to make sure I'm not giving any horizontal movement, and you can see in the box here, in the y-axis, I'm getting some change. And then if we move forward, just keep watching that box. Only that y-axis is changing. There's no horizontal movement. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to copy this position here. So he's going up and straight back down to that position. I could copy, do another ones, another 4 and 4, but I'm just going to keep these as cycling. Going to cycle, it's 7 frames back. Up, down. And you'll see the length of this on the timeline is exactly half the length of the length of the leg positions. So if we play it now, we're getting something like that. That looks cool. Okay, I am also going to do this. I'm going to take his legs out of this group, and I'm going to out of the body group. So the body's independent now, and I'm going to put the origin of the body here. So while the body moves, so while he's walking, I want the body to go backwards and forwards. And as you can see, if I'm moving that, his eyes and mouth are not, which is not what we want. So let's move the mouth and eyes into the body group, so that when we go to frame 1, we're going to tilt him back about 5 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. When he comes forward, it's going to go to -5 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're back at the starting pose. And I'm going to copy and paste that keyframe. Cycle this guy back 17 frames. I've just made it go back too many frames. That's better. So, okay. Cool, that's working nicely. Nice, so we got that. Now we're going to move him from left to right. So we'll start on frame 1. Let's also put the origin at the bottom here. It's good practice to move the origin at frame 0. Sometimes if you're later down the line and you move the origin here, if you've already added keyframes, you get very strange results. So let's move the origin to his feet. Frame 1, and let's move him off screen. And we're going to move him, I'm just going to take a wild guess here, and let's see how that looks at about 3 seconds. Now, as you can see, he's kind of speeding up. He starts off slow and speeds up as he walks. That's not really what we want. And when you first start off with Animate Studio, you'll find that this default interpolation kind of gives you floaty movement a lot of the time. that you can use if it's what you want, but sometimes it looks like your character's walking on the moon or something. So we're going to right click this first frame and change it to linear. That's going to give us even interpolation across the timeline. Anime Studio's default interpolation has a bit of easing in and out. So that looks pretty good. If we wanted him to be slower, we could drag this keyframe out and he'd walk even slower. If we wanted him to be quicker, we'd put it there and he'd get there in 2 seconds instead of 3. So I'm going to see where his 1 foot is straight, which is here, and I'm going to move that keyframe to that position. Now it gets a little bit tricky. We're going to make him stop and jump over the puddle and then say something. So what we want to do is go to this bone movement tool here. We're just going to right click here and add a keyframe. This is for the leg. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 frames later, I'm going to copy and paste the starting position when it's straight, right? If this isn't making sense to you, it is a bit of a mind jump to get to. But this, when I put a keyframe here, it's going to stop that previous cycle. Okay, and it's stopping it here, and then it's going to the next keyframe, which is a straight leg. And this frame here, this leg here is already straight, so I'm going to right click and go add a keyframe. So the cycle is stopped, and there's no further keyframe, so the leg's not moving anymore. As you can see, his head keeps bopping, and he keeps going up and down, because we've still got a cycle for the vertical movement. So I'm going to right click and add a keyframe for the vertical movement. And his body's also going backwards and forwards now. So I'm going to add a keyframe here. Although that would work, I'm just going to click on reset to make it go back to 0 degrees. So he's just going to snap straight back there. So here's what we got so far. Walk, 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 stop. Nice. Now, when he's going to jump, his legs are going to bend and he's going to jump over this puddle. Here, there's no more action after here. So I'm going to give him about 12 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm going to make his legs bend. So I'm going to add a keyframe. 1, 2, 3, 4 frames later. Make his legs bend like that. I'm going to do the same with this leg. 1, 2, 3, 4. Check it out. And his vertical movement, his body's going to go down with that. So I'm going to copy and paste this keyframe. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to make him go down like that. That looks a bit too much. That looks good. And he's going to stay there for 6 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's make it 12 frames. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I'm pressing enter to deselect the Command C, Command V. And the very next frame, his legs are going to be like that. There's not even a frame there to interpolate. If I put it one later, it would interpolate it by 1. But I just want to snap into that position. I'm going to copy that pose. Boom. Nice. Now he's going to jump. He's down here and then his legs jump out like that. I'm going to copy and paste his vertical position here. I'm not going to make him jump from left to right just yet. He's just going to jump straight up and we're going to add the horizontal movement later, okay? So next frame, I'm just going to create the keyframes and then drag them out later. I reckon he can jump about that high. and then he's going to come back down to the same position. So we got those frames. Now is the clever part that one of the Lost Marble users, Slow Tiger, showed me, which is such a good way to add ease in and out from the jump. In between these two frames and the top one, we're going to add a keyframe that's about 3/4 of the way up. See? So, and then we're going to drag this last one out and add this keyframe again, copy and paste it. And then we'll drag between the first two, let's say about 1, 2, 3. 3 frames, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So in 3 frames, he's going to go 3/4 of the way, and in 9 frames, he's going to go the rest of the way. I'm going to do the same on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3. So let's see how that looks. Boing. Nice. And if we didn't have these 2 keyframes, you get this floaty movement and it doesn't look right. But these 2 little frames here help it accelerate and then slow down. That looks cool. And then when he lands, let's do this. On the frame before he lands, his legs are going to come across like that. Right. And then the very next frame is going to go into the crouch position for 4 frames. And then 4 frames he's going to stand back up. Same with this one. Copy this, copy that keyframe. We'll put a holding frame here. And then he's back up. We're going to help his body move. So copy paste. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's going to get up to his normal position. So here's what we got. Cool. Now, all we got to do to get him to jump over the puddle is put a horizontal keyframe here. Copy and paste that last one because he hasn't moved left or right yet. And then he's gonna, here he's landed. So the next keyframe is going to be over here. This is easing in and out, which we don't want with the horizontal movement. We're going to turn that to linear. That's better. So let's have a look what we got so far. Cool. Now all we got to do is do his lip sync and his eyes. So let's create a quick sound file. I'm going to open Audacity, which is a free audio editor for Mac and PC. And I think he's going to say, I jumped like a ninja because I'm awesome. All right. So I'm going to select my microphone. Here we are. Mono. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. We'll trim that and that. And we'll export it to a WAV. Call it dude audio. So now we have got this nice audio file. I'll just test it. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. Cool. Gonna go to frame 0 and import audio. Now because it only occurs later, we could have imported it where we wanted him to talk and it would have arrived there, but we land up with a whole bunch of strange visibility keyframes and stuff, so I prefer importing my stuff at frame 0 if I can. So let's say where we want it to start at about 144. So I'm going to drag it in the sequencer, and what I'm going to do here is just extend the range of our animation. You see this blue bar, that's where your animation ends. I'm going to give us about 12 seconds. So on Mac, I hold Control and Alt and click. And that gives us a bit more time. Okay, so back in the channel view, now he's landed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to make his eyes look straight. And now we're going to start the lip syncing. There are ways to automatically lip sync, but the results sometimes leave quite a bit to be desired, and to be honest, it's not that hard to manually lip sync anyway, and you get better results. Just do it properly the first time, I find. So we're gonna keyframe through, or sorry, just frame through, just by pressing the right arrow on our keyboard. And then as we go, we'll select mouth shapes. Oops. Okay, so we've done that. Let's test it. Spacebar. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. Nice. And that's it pretty much. You can see though that the camera he's going off screen. So what we can do is animate the camera moving as he jumps. So we're going to animate the camera, boom, as he jumps. So what we do is we select this camera pan button. We're just going to click once to add a keyframe. Here it's added a keyframe for us. And as he jumps, and we're going to end the camera movement as he lands. So I'm going to click and drag and hold shift to lock it to horizontal and vertical. So we're going to end up with him in the middle of the frame. So if I press spacebar, you can see that the camera moves with him. I jump. And now also, I don't know if you can hear it, but the sound has also moved, so I'm only hearing it on the left speaker. I want to try avoid that. So double click the audio, click on the audio tab, and click on spatial positioning. That is quite cool if you want to do stereo stuff with sounds coming out the left and right speaker as the scene moves, but for this I don't want it. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. Sweet. We could go back and move the the body. So in other words, when he crouches down, I'm going to press M for the translate layer. I'm going to add a rotation keyframe here. And 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to make him bend down a bit. Keep it down. And then instead of adding another keyframe here, I can just select this and go step. So with step, the very next keyframe is going to go straight to it. And then he can come back quite a bit. See how the step just makes it stay until the next key. It doesn't interpolate, in other words, for the next one. As he's flying, boom. I'm going to interpolate that to here. So over time, his body's going to go from left to right. And then I want to keep it down. 4. And then click on, and just make sure I hit enter to deselect this keyframe, because if I reset the position now, it's also going to reset that keyframe, I think. So enter to deselect and click reset. So here we go. I jumped like an... Cool. Can also make him tilt his head a bit before he talks. So copy that. And let's give him like that tilt. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. Okay, done. I'm going to save that. And now it's time to export the animation. So I go File, Export from 1 to 300, which is the length of our animation. We're going to leave these as is. And just for tests export, I'm going to choose H.264, which is a pretty good compressor, and call it export. All right. Quality maximum's okay. Save. And this should be pretty quick. Let's have a squiz. Spacebar. I jumped like a ninja because I am awesome. Great success. If you want to make cool animation, it's not enough just to know the technical aspects of Animate Studio. I really recommend this book. It's where I learned a lot of animation. The Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. It's got a lot of great examples and it explains things well. Well worth investing in. Loads of walk cycles. And then you just kind of start understanding animation a bit better. It explains weight. It really is a great book. So if there's one book you're going to get, I would say Animator Survival Kit. Other good ones are 5 C's of Cinematography by Joseph Maskeli. It's an old school book, but it explains the different kinds of shots you can use which apply to animation as well. Loads of black and white illustrations, but the principles still apply today. Another worthwhile book. Ones that are quite cool but not essential. Animator's Workbook. It's got lots of examples and stuff that you can go through. It explains dope sheets and stuff, so it doesn't really apply to Animate Studio, but a lot of the animation principles apply. More for general interest. And this is Disney's Illusion of Life, more like a coffee table book that just goes through the history of Disney animation. Beautiful color illustrations and photographs of work, but also more just for interest. And if you want to learn about the history of animation, that's really useful. And if you like this, please let me know if you'd like to see more tutorials of a certain thing. There's a lot of Animate Studio aspects I wouldn't mind covering, quite specific stuff, and we can get deeper into the program and how I use it. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Animation, baby.